Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast, where every week we hear an amazing story from a serious founder who built a valuable software company and did it without big funding. I'm your host, Greg Head. And this week, my guests are the co founders of Genius Monkey, uh, Seth Hassell and Clint Ethington, co founders who've been working together since they knew each other as kids and started many businesses together. Genius Monkey is a successful digital ad platform that is automated, programmatic, algorithmic, and playing amongst the giants of Google and other VC funded ad platforms. They've grown quite large, bootstrapped, and profitable. And it's quite an amazing story. They do a lot of things differently. So, this is a story of two practical founders, both on the podcast today, who will tell the inside story of Genius Monkey, one they haven't shared a lot, but it's a growing and profitable bootstrap software company. Okay, Seth and Clint, welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast. Good to see you guys.
Hey, thanks, Greg. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we have two co-founders here, so you're not used to doing that, you go first and I'll go second kind of thing. Both have similar things. You've known each other a long time. I was in Phoenix for a long time, and that's where you guys are. I never met you, and I looked out on LinkedIn to, double check your titles and all that. You guys aren't even on LinkedIn. Are you guys trying to be incognito in Phoenix and on the web? I mean, what's up with that? Clint, is there a reason why you guys aren't on LinkedIn?
We're kind of heads down, do the work, we got young kids, so we're running around chasing them as well. We got 9 kids between the 2 of us, and so that keeps us busy. We just never been, we don't really have social media either. My social media account's fake just so I can get some news out of it.
Ah, yeah, but Seth, is there, you just don't want to be accosted by people looking for jobs or trying to buy your companies and things like that,
No,
Is
we've
this
never looked at it that way. It's more we just like to keep private and, as Clint said, keep it down, our heads down, and nobody needs to know what's going on. Everything's just working great.
It's the reason we don't hear about so many awesome practical founders like you guys because, you're not out here waving your hands, going to every conference, bragging about what you do online. And, here I am, in Hawaii, on my 12th vacation this year and all that stuff. So, yeah. And I looked for like a podcast to get a little background on you guys. And, this will be the first one, maybe something like that. So, yeah, that's great. So, it's Genius Monkey, the company you 2, created, out of your previous company and grew and is still running after all these years, bootstrapped and successful. Seth, let's just start here. What is Genius Monkey for everybody out there?
So, Genius Monkey, it's an ad platform that we built
Mhm.
that allows people to either do video marketing, do display marketing, or connected audio marketing. And we're also starting to dabble out with the billboards. So it gives them an opportunity to advertise across all those mediums, and it's done programmatically. And it's for agencies or also direct clients, and it's fully managed. So once they give us their assets, we just take off from there and hopefully get them lots of business.
So that's digital ads. These are ad banners. Is that pay per click as well, or
No, we don't really do the pay-per-click area. We like for the clients to have that as part of their whole marketing structure, but we don't do that side of it. But we'll help them with that to make sure that it's in place and everything's running smooth because we found that it works really well when everything's put together.
so it's an ad platform, so your business, is pushing the ads through, right? And you're making a profit off of presumably the volume of ads that they're placing, something like that? Or how does that work?
Yep, that's exactly it. So we'll take it's a as we were saying, it's fully managed. So they give us a budget. We take that budget and then utilize our system to run it through and find the best targeted people for them. And it's an all-inclusive price. So they know ahead of time what they're going to average when it comes to cost per thousand or cost per click. Whatever they're looking to hit, that's what we'll go after.
So, once a company has done the SEO game, and then they get in the pay-per-click game, and they say, "We have something we want to promote across the global mega web with some kind of ad banners and things like that." There's a whole set of networks, supply side, demand side game, and connecting those up. You're, I guess, a supply side ad platform to bring them to the network, or are you doing both sides?
We do both sides, but yeah, on that, when you're talking about, like you were talking about search engine optimization, SEO, a lot of people find that that's just so complicated and they always got to stay on it. And then somebody else comes in the game and those are always moving parts. And we know about that because that's what we used to do. And we found that, hey, it's better, your money can be better spent as you build your SEO to do, like you're saying, the banner ads, the video ads, the connected audio, wherever your client is. And that's the best part about what Genius Monkey does is we find the people who are already looking for what you're selling. We match them up with all the different demographics. We take all that data that's in the background, compile it, find those people, and then only advertise to them. So you're not sitting there wasting views on people who wouldn't even care about your product.
Well, it must work. You've been doing it a long time and you're still succeeding and profitable and so forth. You said managed like an agency would do for you, but this platform, I don't know, it's the programmatic is the modern word for that, right?
That's correct. Yep. And so the programmatic side of it is right, trying to find those people in the background, trying to get all the different demographics together. That's the programmatic side instead of just blasting it out to everybody. And then the managed side of it is you're not the one who has to go in there and be an expert at it. It's our people who are the experts. And we go in there and we do all the twisting of the dials and making sure that it's exactly what you're looking for. And then on top of that, we have a whole analytics package that does everything from not only just a click, it's from a display when an ad is shown to the person all the way down to a conversion and everything in between. And so you can go in there and see exactly how our advertising is helping even your other advertising or vice versa.
Okay, we'll get into that, all that attribution and tracking and, you know, the lies attribution, tells us from, the ad platforms themselves and how you guys sort that out. It's a very tricky game out there. Uh, Clint, can you tell us about the state of the company these days? Revenue, employees? You guys are based in the Phoenix area. Tell us about what's going on at the company.
So, we're still a very active private company. And so we don't want to divulge too much uh, in the financials there. I will tell you, we've recently been evaluated a little over 100 million. So that kind of gives you some insights there. We're between 50 and 100 employees. And right now, ever since, it's actually a really cool story, but ever since COVID, we do have a small office where we've got training and meetings and conferences and stuff like that. Right now, everybody's working from home. A lot of companies, including our competitors, have found that not to work so well. With the people we have, it has worked out tremendously. Everybody's more productive. Everybody's having a good time, and it's working.
Yeah. Well, I imagine there's something systematic about how you two think, right? To say we're kind of, I'm sure you came out of the digital business somehow and wanted to be more systematic about this. And your system includes both technology and then a little people on top of it that, guide your software system. So it isn't like an agency, and agencies use software as well, but I guess that's another question there is this mostly about ad agencies and they're the guide on top of, your automated platform, or do you find it's mostly end customers managing their own media?
It's actually both. It's almost 50-50.
Okay.
You're talking about who our users are?
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, agencies, a lot of agencies try to do it all and they go and they'll use a platform like the Trade Desk or whatever, and usually have very unqualified people in there turning the dials and no technology built in whatsoever. And we know because we tried it years and
Yeah,
years and
yeah.
years ago. We tried to do that route. That's where Genius Monkey was born, because nothing could do what we wanted it to do. Like,
Yeah.
our claim to fame is, if we could have true attribution from the impression down to the conversion, that we could do everything better.
Yeah.
Targeting, return. It's our return on ad spend is the biggest thing.
ROAS.
Yeah, ROAS. See, you know a little bit about this.
Well, yeah, I played the game, out there. And good friend of mine who was on the podcast, Scott DeGrossi at Wicked Reports, is in that attribution game for, e-commerce, digital advertisers out there, right? And playing all of that. So, Seth, do you have any outside funding after all these years? I know we're going to talk about some royalty-based, non-dilutive funding that you guys have taken, but is there any, angel investors or VC investors here?
So, like you're talking about the royalty funding, we took that first. First of all, Clint and I just bootstrapped it like crazy. We started it from nothing, built it, and that was in our DNA. Like, my father is an entrepreneur. He owned his own business. The same with Clint's dad. And from the beginning, they taught us, hey, do it all on your own. And I'm super grateful for that. And I know Clint is too, because when we took the royalty funding, it totally is a different structure, and we would have lost a lot of the company had we gone with the VC side. Now, there's nothing wrong with VC side, and it works for people, but for us, this route was a way better way. But to answer the question, later on, after we took that funding from Cypress Growth Capital, we then had another angel investor who came in, and Clint and I went with that because he had invested in some of our other companies when we were younger, and he wanted to still be a part of us, and we loved him as a guy and a friend, and he jumped in, and it helped us at a perfect time. It was a time we needed a little bit more funding, and he wanted to invest at the time, so it was a match made in heaven, and that's the only other person.
Okay. So, super, friends and family, right? This kind of thing. And he helped you out and you helped him out, right? You gave him a piece of a growing business that would be more valuable. Is this an active investor who expects a big return, or is this more of a friend of Clint and Seth that likes what you guys do?
When it was done, it was more a friend of Clint and Seth. And his saying is, because he had all of his accountants and attorneys thinking that he was crazy investing any money with us, no matter what the dollar amount was. And again, this is after Cypress had already invested in us. So it wasn't like we were brand new, but they were like telling him, don't do it, you're crazy. And he goes, I invest in people, not things. And you two are the best people I can think of investing in. And so that's how it all happened. And over a handshake, we moved forward with the deal and had a great lunch that day. And he's been handsomely returned on his idea of investing in Clint and I.
Great. And you guys are, it's a private company and you guys are pretty private about it. Is it an LLC kind of organization or a C Corp or?
It's an
Uh,
LLC currently.
okay. So whatever profits you make, get distributed, or, yeah, kind of thing. So great. You know, I don't know what kind of life you guys have these days. You're busy with your kids and this business, and I don't know what we'll talk about that. But this is what an investor in ad tech platforms would call a lifestyle business, right? Because they would throw rocks at it that way and say it's a lifestyle business. But you guys have made the decisions, around what you guys wanted out of everything. So there's definitely a place for that. We'll talk about that. Well, Clint, you said it was recently valued about 100 million. Did somebody throw an offer at you, or did you get a little, evaluation of your company to, I don't know, for some reason? Yeah.
Yeah, we've had, I'd say almost every year we're getting offers on the company, and some are some are in line and some are way out of line. Of course, we've been very selective on who we even talk to these days. But Seth and I promised our employees and ourselves that we would make sure everyone's taken care of if there ever is an exit. And in this business, it's almost a guarantee that there will be an exit one day, especially at the numbers we're doing and the success we're having. But this last particular deal, there were some things in there we didn't like, and we didn't like potential future of where the employees would maybe be dispersed or what have you. And so,
Very typical. Like, if show
yeah,
me a company that's got 50 to 100 employees and I presume profitable after, the way you guys are talking about it and growing as well. Is it growing pretty seriously these days or?
absolutely.
Okay, and picking up speed. So that's worth a lot of money. So show me founders like that, and I know they're getting offers, and you're saying no, at least so far. So we'll talk about your philosophy of running the business and so forth. So, because you guys could sell the company today and walk away with life-changing wealth, but you don't, right? So show me founders who are in the game, and they're saying no. That's really exciting. Congratulations on your success. You guys are partners in crime here. How long have you two known each other? Seth, when did you guys first meet?
So Clint and I go way back. And when I say way back, we knew each other in junior high. So seventh grade is where we met. We've been friends ever since then. And we became business partners after I came off of my mission. Clint had a business that he was already in, and I jumped in there, and ever since then. So that was at 21 years old. So we've been business partners for over 26 years.
That's amazing here. So we'll talk about your partnership here. What was that first business that you two worked on together? Is it lawn mowing or was it in the digital world making websites or what was that thing?
Greg, it's better than that. We were in what they call a producer dealer of a milk processing plant. So that means you own the cows, you milk the cows, and you deliver the milk all under one roof. So that's what Clint and I were doing. And it's easy to see the transition from going from a milkman, right, to digital. It's just an easy transition.
Yeah. It is actually what got us into digital because we started marketing our products and got involved with, the gentleman we talked about earlier who owned an agency and started kind of getting into that world and then started selling stuff online and all that. But yeah, we grew up in the city, but my dad had a dairy out in the country. And so as kids, we'd go out there and work and um, I was blessed. For some reason, I had a lot of friends that wanted to come work with me on the dairy, and Seth was one of them. And we had a lot of fun too. It was, 300 acres of a young men's paradise out there, just running around, doing whatever, shooting anything that moves in the desert.
This is outside of Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, it was actually in Maricopa before there was any houses in Maricopa, which
Yeah. So
is
you guys are around Arizona before the massive explosion of the last 30, 40, 50 years. So awesome. Well, that's exciting. That's a new one here from milking cows to whatever, milking, the ad platforms or something like that. So very, very awesome. And I could kind of see like if you're dairies and farms and a lot of small businesses sometimes have debt, but usually, it's not about investors in this game. And it's probably another mentality. I grew up in the Midwest and went to school in Iowa, University of Iowa. And, not everybody has the mentality of milking cows and shoveling snow and plowing the fields and just doing the work over and over and over again. And it's kind of magic what we can do with software companies. It compounds and it gets, it's amazing value here. So you started marketing your own products and discovered SEO and was pay-per-click around when you started doing that? I know you guys been doing this for a while.
Yep, it was around. We actually, so from milking cows and owning all of that to where we're at now, there was quite a few businesses that Clint and I did in between. Some of them successful, some of them we sold, some of them not successful at all and lost money, but great training to get us to where we're at now. But one of those companies was a search engine optimization company, and we were doing pay per click when it was 5 cents a click, and it's for all the different uh, genres that were out there. They didn't have it segregated by, hey, this one's more popular, so it's going to be cost you more. No, everything was 5 cents, no matter what we were doing. And so we started dominating some different industries that we went into, not only in the pay per click side, but we learned all about the search engine optimization side. And so we had our own companies that we were sitting there running all of that through, and other people saw the success of it and asked us, hey, can you help us with our stuff.
So, Clint, did you guys turn it into an agency and start, helping people do their own marketing?
Yeah, we had a core company that was the master marketer. And then that allowed us to, I mean, we realized we could go into anything that we knew anything about. And so we'd
Yeah.
either partner with experts or become experts ourselves and push those and we're very successful at it. So like Seth said, people started saying, well, can you help my company? And we said, well, we don't really do that unless we own it. And so there were some of those deals, but then we started thinking, maybe we do need to create a specialty digital agency out of it, which
Wow.
really led to Genius Monkey because we started, and Seth was traveling the world speaking at different marketing conferences and like that, and became quite the marketing figure there.
Yeah. What years were those here? Just that was the frontier of SEO and pay-per-click and digital ads and, when, you could pick an industry, and if you really knew SEO and pay-per-click and all that, you could really go to the top right away and kinda kill it, and it was kinda cheap and, but obviously those were the days. What kinda years were those when you were doing digital agency, Seth?
We started off around even in the late 1990s, and then 2000 and probably 1 and 3 is where things really started going, and we were traveling a lot during those times. And just to point out earlier, you said, "Hey, you don't find much when you look on the internet." Even back then, we try to stay incognito, and it's worked because even now you still don't find a lot of things that we did back then.
Yeah. Interesting. Your footprints. You know about the footprints. We'll talk about that, you look at yeah.
There was even once we had an opportunity that we had built all these sites, and to get them correctly SEO'd, we had to do different things. And in so doing, we didn't know that some of these larger platforms that we were working with, we thought that their traffic was a lot higher. But when we pushed certain things to them, it was so much traffic that it actually shut their whole systems down. And then there was a few write-ups in different national newspapers about us that they didn't know it was us. But just interesting to see how everything has changed, and how the amount of traffic that is now going across the internet wasn't anywhere near what it was back then.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. So, how long did you guys do this digital agency thing before you said, "There's a product idea in here"? Maybe you built your own product for internal use and then spun it and people said, "Can we use that?" Is that the game here? Clint, how did that work?
Yeah, we started building automation around what we were doing. We reached out to some larger so-called companies that were, supposedly had it all figured out. We realized they did not really quickly. We actually lost a lot of money in trying to find something that worked. So that's when we set out on, what we wanted to achieve, and that was being able to serve better ads to the right people and track them all the way down to the conversions so we know exactly where our dollars are going. And that's what we did. The automations started getting bigger and better. Said, you know what, we need to release a platform. And I would say that was in 2013, 14, where we decided to make Genius Monkey the automation, the ad tech display platform.
And back then, that was like actually one of the first areas in software where we used the word platform, right? People came and, right, buyers and sellers, and you were maximizing this thing in many different ways. Everything's a platform. It's software these days, but that was actually an ad platform. Like, what were the big ad platforms these days? Like that you could put in your content and go across ad networks. Google, of course, is just proprietary. Facebook is just proprietary. Like, do you go across Facebook? Well, and
Everything. Yeah, everything. And that's one of our claim to fames is we're plugged into all the networks, and being agnostic to those allows us to move dollars to wherever the success is.
imagine that. And they're all saying, "Come here. The conversions are great. Please spend your money with us." And you're saying, "We'll verify that."
Yeah, we'll
Like,
we'll be the deciding factor
yeah,
there.
we'll be the judge of that there.
Yeah.
So, wow, that's amazing. So, how many years did it take, Seth, for you guys to go from, services business and then with automation and being savvy about it to product revenue? Usually it's a 2 or 3-year transition as, product revenue starts to take off. It's not quite a SaaS product, meaning they're paying you by the user and it's you're getting a piece of their ads. But how long did it take before you said we won't be a services company anymore, we're all about product?
So, like Clint was saying, we started all the SEO stuff 2001, and then around 2009 we started to help other companies. Uh, 2013 is when we took money in from Cypress, and that's when things started to really take off. I mean, we had been profitable up to that point. It was just small dollars, wasn't going anywhere, and that's why we actually took the money from Cypress, is because Clint and I knew, hey, if we wanted to bring this thing to the next level, we needed some funding to get the people in and to beat the other companies to the punch. We had already been doing it. It wasn't called programmatic at the time. In fact, we didn't use that word, but kind of coined it. But nonetheless, 2009, and then I would say things really took off 2011. And so, like you're saying in your time frame, in 2 years, when Cypress came in 2013, we were already at that point selling. So
Selling the platform.
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's talk about Cypress. You guys said we need some funding to go a little faster. Maybe there's big VC funded competitors out there. Our little service business can't support this transition. We need to get over the hump. But you didn't raise funding, equity funding. You raised a debt like instrument, from Cypress Growth Partners. Who are kind of the pioneers in this revenue-based financing that is debt-like and pretty flexible, but it's non-dilutive, so you don't sell a part of your equity, you pay it back, right?
Like I was saying, it was the best. When Clint and I look back at things, had we taken VC money during that time when we were a startup, they would have taken anywhere to 40 to 60% of the company, because we were new. We were making revenue. We were profitable, but it wasn't a lot of money at the time, and so we were looked at as a startup. And it was another friend of ours who knew about Cypress that introduced us, and they came to Phoenix to our office and met with us, and we thought it was the best deal ever because, just like you said, you don't have to give up any of your ownership of the company, and you still get the funds, and then you just pay off of the revenue that you make. And so there also wasn't this big old debt hanging over your head either, that you're like, "Hey, we have to pay the interest on this, or we have to make this payment." It was, these funds come
You don't
in,
have
we have to
covenants,
cycle
they
it
don't
out.
come for your house if you don't pay it back and things like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it's royalty based. So if we grow real fast, we're going to pay back faster. If we don't, if we struggle, it's going to get paid back slower. There's a great structure.
Yeah, it's very flexible.
When the guys came, that was the other thing. The Cypress Growth Capital came, and it was 2 of the 3 founders of Cypress that came and met with us, and that was Ed and Bart. And Clint and I just clicked with them right away. They're the good old boys. They're there to help. They're not just there to make a dime, and it was just fantastic.
And, they're real operators, they're not, like, they looked at your business and you guys and said, "These people are profitable, they're gonna stay, they're gonna get back to profits, they're gonna pay us back, there's something here, there's a flywheel in the business." It's not all about the big pitch and everything. Did you have to make a pitch to them, or did you just show them your financials and tell them your story?
Nope, we had to do a whole pitch. We had all
Okay,
these.
yeah, you had to put on a show.
We did. It was more intimate, right? It's not this whole board you're up against. It was the 2 of them, and Clint and I had spent all day and all night building these wonderful diagrams that we showed them. And I mean, this is back in the day when if you printed out something big, right, that was a lot of money, and not everybody had printers. FedEx wasn't right on the corner of everybody doing these bigger prints, and we had those and tried to do as best we can. And it's interesting because Cypress also said later to us that they said, "We knew that the what you guys showed us was an idea that might have worked, but we invested, like Bob said, the other gentleman, we invested in the 2 of you. We saw that the 2 of you we're going to make something happen. Whether it was exactly like your diagram showed or not, that we didn't bet on, but we betted on the two of you. And let it be known, we did not build the system exactly how those diagrams showed.
Well, this was kind of, let's say, growth funding, meaning let's go. We know what we want to get here. We want to go there. We don't know if it's going to work as a, maybe startup funding, like versus growth funding. We have things that are already working. We're just going to double down. So that was kind of the adventure years, even for them. I think they've moved a little bit upstream. They're going to help accelerate companies that are moving these days. And you guys, we're so practical. And how far across was that? Were you selling the product and you just needed to sell harder, or
Yep.
you needed to finish building the product?
Yeah, that's exactly head on. We were selling it. We were doing pretty decent, but we needed our competitors were raising a minimum of 50 million
Yes.
to
Big, big.
hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
And what Media Math was one at the time, who's no longer. They raised over $1 billion. So that was
What
when
happened to them?
they went bankrupt.
Yeah. Okay. Just checking.
And at the same time, you also had Bright Royal that got bought out for a little over 700 million. And so, and then they didn't make it to where they're at now, right? It transitioned over into the trade desk. And so,
Yeah.
Yeah, these are really big platforms, lots of funding. The ad platforms have been around for a while, a lot of money in digital ads out there, and a lot of sophistication there. Uh, Seth, what was it that made you guys say, we don't want to play this big, crazy game? We don't want VC funded. We don't want VCs in our business. We'll stay in our corner of a corner and do what we do best and stay profitable. What made you guys not do what everybody else was doing way back then? The race was on.
I think it was like we talked about earlier, our raising, how we were raised to not just take this money, right? And we already knew that we had something. And when we did talk to a few of them, they told us how much they were going to take of the company. We were like, whoa! And it wasn't a lot of money. I mean, we just talked about these other guys who were doing right hundreds of millions of dollars. We were looking for millions of dollars, and we ended up with Cypress. Cypress did a $2 million deal with us, but we only ended up taking 1.5 of that.
And you paid it back, right? So let's just be clear. This is not like equity where it's just the bet, but the equity is a different kind of drug there. Clint, do you have a view? I know you guys have seen this industry come and go. You've done the long term on it. What percentage of ad platform, technology companies like yours stayed bootstrapped and independent? Are you guys the one, or is there just a few out there? Or
I would say we're the one.
okay,
I cannot think of anybody even
okay.
close. Yeah.
And so, and you're still going strong, staying in the corner, not trying to be the big guys. What percentage of the VC funded ad platforms actually succeeded and are still around today?
What percentage?
I mean,
It's
because there's a
it's
lot that
below.
were funded, and there's a lot that went bankrupt. There's a lot that got acquired. You know,
I think you could even ask the question, Clint, of how many are left from when we started. Don't even a percentage.
Yeah, and then there's some that basically failed, but they had so much money into them, they kept rebranding themselves and to try and come up with something to get their investors that return, right? Uh, I don't. It's tough to put a percentage on it, but I'd say maybe 10 to 20%.
this week's podcast is brought to you by my friends at Fullscale. Last year, I interviewed three-time software founder Matt Watson on this podcast about his successful practical founder journeys. Matt leveraged offshore development talent in his last two SaaS companies to hire quickly and scale up efficiently. His top developers and designers were offshore in the Philippines, but they weren't one-off contractors and they weren't difficult to manage outsourced agencies. He found an endless supply of top tech talent who became savvy members of his team, working hard every day to get things done. So for his fourth tech venture, Matt created Fullscale, which is one of the fastest growing software development companies in any region. Fullscale vets, employs, and supports over 300 professional developers and designers and testers in the Philippines who can augment and extend your core dev team. I know practical SaaS founders who use Fullscale to grow faster and avoid the product development nightmares that can kill a growing startup. So visit fullscale.io and see why their approach works so well, and book a call to see if they can help you. Now back to our podcast. Okay. Well, that's the game, and go fast, go hard, and, usually doesn't work, but there's a chance in there. And you guys didn't take that bet. You guys said it's working, it's profitable, we can do better. Did you guys expect the company to grow faster and get bigger, or did you imagine you'd be kind of in the place you are, let's say 10, 12 years later, right? Not huge, but still profitable and well managed and surviving and hanging in there? Seth, did did you guys say we want to stay comfortable? Like Jason Fried at Basecamp says, I don't want 200 employees, right? I want to keep it small and I want to focus here. But I don't know. Did you guys have that kind of vision?
We always wanted to be lean. We knew that we could program a lot of things that would take up the space of using humans, but we also needed that human oversight that we have currently. So to answer the question, I think if more businesses knew about the success that we can bring them, we would be bigger than what we are. That is definitely the biggest challenge is that a lot of the big boys of the world, the big companies of the world, they use agencies that don't want to branch out from the non-traditional way of advertising. Even though our way of advertising is very traditional, it's not the branded name of the Trade Desk or Google, even though those are all on our platform. That's probably the biggest thing, and I think if they did, they would see the success, and those big companies would start to roll, and we would be bigger than what we are now.
Yeah. Yeah, that was always a struggle if your name wasn't in the headlines of getting money from VCs, it was tougher. Like, well, who are you guys? You say you're the best, but I didn't see your name in lights. And so that was the struggle. But we still, especially in the early years, we were 50 to 70% growth year over year. But we wanted to grow faster, which led to the money, and here we are.
And did you ever have a not profitable year with all of this services to software and platform transition?
Yeah, when we took on Cypress, they knew it, we knew it. We were going to go into the red. It was part of the plan. We presented a plan to do it and to get out of it. And that's when we started really hiring more and better talent, I'd say, and really focusing on automation. So yeah, we went into the red, but it wasn't very long.
It was only that 1 year we've ever been in the red.
Yeah. So your default was profitable, and then you made this agreement with Cypress that says we need a little funding, and it will create enough growth and margin that we can pay you back out of that. So
Yeah, and just a funny story. We were at a conference in New York. It was no, it was an AIB conference, and it was a discussion about transparency in the ad world from the supply side to the demand side and the network side. And it got a little heated, but one guy stood up and said, on the demand side, all of you stand up here from the demand side. So we stood up. Now, everybody who is not profitable on the demand side, stay standing. Everybody step, kept standing, and we're like, wow. And we sat down because we were actually profitable, and we realized, holy crap, these are our competitors. And nobody's profitable, and they all raised millions and millions, or hundreds of millions of dollars. So
yeah. Well, there's a lot of time between 2013 and 2025, including COVID and the scaling up of the global digital ecosystem and so forth here. What were some of the key milestones along the way? I mean, did your product have stair-stepping milestones as you added capabilities and you two growing as co-founders?
Yeah, there's
the
definitely been some milestones. I would say some of the big ones are a couple people that we hired who have really catapulted the company and helped out in there. That was one of the things we kind of prided ourselves on is it took a little bit to find the right people that had the same philosophy that we were looking for in our company, but once those came, they've been solid ever since, and our turnover in employees is extremely low. I
Yeah.
count them on one hand, maybe two.
What is that philosophy? Like, what's the, the guiding principle that, is a connection between your customers and your employees, Seth?
I'll actually let Clint answer that one because he's over that area and right in line with it.
So we actually have and I'm going to butcher it because it's three of them, but we look for hungry, humble. Oh, I did think of it, and smart people. So
So why don't you repeat that? What's the trilogy there?
hungry, humble, and smart. And it's actually from a book that our CRO brought to the table that he demanded everybody in the company read. And that's the part I'm going to butcher. I can't remember the name of it, but
Well, that's very practical, right? Let's find leverage in the business and not try to be crazy.
keep it simple. But Jeremy Hudgens, he's our CRO, and he was the one. And Travis Champ, who's our COO, they've been with us from the beginning, and we've learned the industry together. And they've been brought up from within. We have never hired anybody outside to come in and be a big executive or anything like that. It's always been promoted from within because they know our business better than anybody. But yeah, hungry, humble, and smart. We found out real fast if there was a lot of smart people we either hired or almost hired, and hungry, but they were missing humble, and that was a game changer or one of the others. And so that was probably some of the best advice that we really took in to do that.
And so on the customer side, you get narrowed in on your focus to be you had your ideal employee, ideal um, ICP, ideal employee profile, right? And so, Seth, on the customer side, I mean, you could say there's millions of business that do digital advertising out there. You're not for everybody, right? Can you say how many customers do you have? Do you have thousands, hundreds?
We're in the thousand.
But like you thousands out of, tens of millions or something globally. What is the kind of customer that is ideal for you? What do they have to believe or have to have done and experienced to come to you and say, "You guys are the right one. This is awesome."
So the ideal customer is somebody who's already advertising and they've already created a footprint of whether that's just doing their own PPC or some type of advertising that's out there and that we can then layer on top of that. And we ask them to make sure that they have funding for 6 months to 9 months of doing it, even though they see success before then that we want to make sure that, hey, this isn't some grandma's last will and testament money over to them and we're their last hope. That's we're not there to get those type of clients, nor would we want to have anybody do that. So a founded company that already is doing marketing, that's who we are. And we can do any company from any industry. From we've been doing people as somebody who's doing an online shop, doing e-commerce, all the way to attorneys, to EDUs. We ran the gambit and all of them have had success.
And but it's not like any company, any size, any industry still. That's up and running and wants to improve their ad spend. They've tried it, and my guess is they suspect that they're getting bad information from their agencies or you know, the advertisers, Google and Facebook and the rest, and they want a source of savvy truth, right? Is that a version of what they're looking for? And you know, they're humble about their results and they know they want to improve.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and there was a major shift that happened. I'd say it was since COVID. Brands always relied on an agency. They'd find an agency, and then the agency was trying to do everything it could. But as systems and automations grew, platforms started popping up everywhere. In-house marketing teams for companies, for brands, realized they could do it in-house, leveraging outside platforms. So there was a major shift in the agency world. A lot of agencies shut down, went out of business because of it. The ones that stuck are still around, really morphed into that digital world and partnered with people like us to stay on the forefront of digital marketing. So
Yeah. So you're kind of on trend. You were automating as people were doing this manually and, finally catching up. And was there AI or algorithms or machine learning at the beginning to do this sophisticated math of what's really working, what's really effective, where's really the target, and tuning in? Were you guys AI and machine learning before that was cool?
yeah, we were before we knew what it was. Yeah, we started out with algorithms, just if and or statements that Seth famously always called them. We've got to build in if and or statements. If this happens and this happens or this happens, we do this, and just constantly build those out, which they became known as algorithms, and then it was okay. Let's let them learn from themselves, and
And so does your software and the algorithm get better the more data you put through it, or is it a cat and mouse game, Seth, of figuring out what what the logic is, where the optimization is, where the data is? Because cookies have changed and platforms have changed and tracking has changed and other things like that. Is that a continuing problem, or is that kind of been a straight line for you guys that there's more data and better algorithms for you guys?
So there's definitely more data, and our algorithms do learn on their own to answer that question. It's built into it, and so it's always learning its circular cycle as it sees whether it's conversion. Let's say a client wants to go for conversions as opposed to just getting the ads in front of people, or maybe they wanted a specific page to be shown. Whatever it is, we program that in, and as that happens, it gets better and better and better and goes around and around and continually gets better, and the focus gets tighter in. And then we also have the human oversight on top of that, and they have their own dashboards that are internal, and they see what's happening, and they can either agree with it, disagree, and put the reason why, and help them the learning even further from the human oversight on it.
How many humans do you have, the guides for your, you know, automation and algorithms?
So account the campaign managers, there are 9 of them that are in there making that happen.
And they each have hundreds of companies they work with, so it's an optimized kind of thing, right? Very high leverage.
Right, but even though there are that equation where you're saying, "Hey, there's hundreds per each," due to the dashboard that they have, they're touching each of those clients' ads on a daily basis. So, 'cause, their dashboard comes up in front of them, and then they have certain tasks that they have to do on those each ones to see where it's at, and then they can push that forward.
So do you see a time when AI could just solve that problem? You guys have reached the pinnacle of automation and algorithm, right? This is just the AI question. Do we need humans in the loop?
We need humans in the loop for sure. At least for how our philosophy is, we definitely need it. And it will continually learn and get better, yes, and there'll be less for them, but they'll still need to be there. And they've made some critical, changes that the AI wouldn't have seen. A great example is we had a client who rents motorhomes, and when there was a big storm on the East Coast, all of a sudden, their whole normal system that was running just went out the window, and it was only the human who's knew what was going on could take on, "Okay, hey, we got this going on, so we need to change X, Y, and Z," and that's one of our best examples because the system would have reduced the advertising that was going on due to what was happening when in fact it needed to increase it, and due to that increase, they had a huge success and helped a ton of people who needed some homes during the time when the storm had wiped out quite a bit of the homes.
Yeah. So, very interesting here. Um, so how are you known in the industry to your customers and the agencies that use you? Are you like the hidden secret here, the secret weapon, that not everybody knows about? Do you go to these trade shows and, you're not the big brand and so forth, but what is your reputation out there, Clint?
It's a great reputation. In the earlier days, it was actually pretty hard to get testimonies to spread out because they said, "Well, I'm not telling anybody I
I
use
don't
you."
want my competitors using you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're like, "Well, we understand," and we embrace that, and we would do blind case studies, but they always seem, awkward because it's all blind, and you just feel that anyone could think you're just making it up, which we did not. But as we become a household name, which we have in the space a lot more, uh, brands have been excited to do testimonials with us, and we'll fly out a team to go do a whole production and let them tell their story, and we get to tell our story, and it works out great. Actually, we give them some advertising around that, and uh, worked out good.
So could your business, Clint, could it be 10 times bigger and still not break the company culture and your campaign managers and the math they have and finding best fit customers that really appreciate what you do? I mean, could it be 10 times bigger, 100 times bigger? I don't know.
It could, yeah, and the beauty of that is because I mean, from the beginning, like we talked about, people, the the executive team we have in place and the managers and the employees themselves are so strong that that growth could come without very many problems, and we could 2, 3, 4x revenue and not have to really hire very many more people. Even that, I mean, that's how strong that base of amazing people and processes are in place.
So you've got this systematic business. Congratulations, you've built. Now the reputation's building. Digital ads aren't going away. You've got a strong team. You've systemized the business and it's growing and picking up speed, it sounds like. Are you guys, you know, 40 hours, 60 hours, 20 hours a week in the business here? I mean, it's spitting out some profit for you and you're busy with your kids. Can you say, I'll ask each one of you, Seth, what is your life like on top of this thing that you've spent all these years building, right? To that's now running.
Yeah, to your point, yes, we are not working the whole 40 hours a week. We still put in time, but we've put in our time a lot more before this to get to this point. And hiring the right people has definitely decreased the amount of stress that we have because they're willing to think the way Clint and I think. And it took years to get them to that point, but they're very close to our mentality and willing to put in the hours, and so, yeah, and it's a wonderful life to answer your question.
and they've actually surpassed our understanding of the business almost. They're in it day to day, and they're extremely smart, and so, yeah, they make, like Seth said, they'll make decisions like we make and then better in a lot of cases.
Right, because you would imagine, like, you guys do the thrashing about and figuring it out and getting the flywheel going, and usually founders are the smartest people in the room, and then there's a point where it's big enough and the founders aren't all the way down to every detail all the time, and somebody else is smarter, and then if you let them run for 5 or 10 years, uh, you know, I
Yeah,
hear what you're saying, they could do it better, the founders here.
yeah, if the founder's the smartest person in the room, he's an idiot.
Yeah. He or she, right? But
He
we won't
he
call
or she.
name any names. Yeah, right. Okay, so let's talk about this partnership here. You guys are, having fun talking, back and forth, and you guys think similarly. Like, what did you guys specialize in, and how did you make this partnership work? I mean, did you divide and conquer? And, you know, Seth, how did you put up with this guy for all these years?
Well, that part was easy. I mean, if you could imagine some of the things we've gone through, it was easy. And yes, there is a division in who covers what, and it's always been that way. I've always done the numbers, dealing with the finances. I was more on the software side of things. Clint always had great ideas that would come into the software, and we would build that out. So that part was definitely shared. But in coding it, that was on my side. did search engine optimization, PPC. That was
The
mine. And
mathy
then,
stuff over there, the deep, the deep algorithm.
yeah, the techie side. But I don't want to take all the credit for the techie because, like I was saying, Clint would see something that we were doing and go, well, why don't we think about it this way? And then all of a sudden that would spout a whole new idea. And then Clint was over the employees and sales and has just rocked it. He's been a superstar in sales prior to being in Genius Monkey. And then he took it on and built a team that then got turned over to Jeremy. And one of the things, because one of the questions would be, how did you guys deal with problems? If there was something in the company that was a problem, and very young, back in the dairy days, we would sit down and we'd say, who's more passionate about the subject at hand? And whoever was more passionate, we'd say, your decision then. And then the other person would go along with that decision. And only one time can I think of where Clint and I argued over something. And that dealt more with an argument because there was employees involved in the argument with us. And we were trying to side with an employee more so than looking at the actual business. And after they left, Clint and I sat down and said, okay, and we did our same thing and it was solved without arguing. But due to employees being in there, it got a little bit more heated than what we had ever had. But that's the only time. And it's worked out really, really well. And the reason we've left it to who's more passionate is because they're now going to own that and put all their effort into it. And we noticed that from an early point, even working back on the dairy.
That's interesting. So it's less about who's right or who's wrong, but who wants to own this problem all the way through, right? The hot potato, right?
The funny story about that is years later, probably like 3, 4 years ago, we heard a story. Ben and Jerry's was being interviewed, Ben and Jerry, and they said, "How'd you get along all these years?" And no joke, I'm not going to get it word for word, but they said, whoever argued the most passionately, that's the direction we went. And we're like, that's us.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's not very typical. I haven't heard that one before, but you guys get to make it up, and it seems to be working here. So it sounds like a straight line, like, you two getting this idea, getting rid of your other businesses, and now you got headed towards 100 employees and, really big valuation and compounding growth. I'm sure it was so easy. There was never any difficult times. What can you share about some of your bigger challenges?
An article I read one time was, remember Angry Birds, the video game? And it said, the $1 billion success story that only took 10 years to build. And that really hit home. Like everybody just sees, wow, Angry Birds hit $1 billion valuation, a video game. That's crazy. That just came out last year or whatever. And now they spent 10 years building that thing to be what it did. And
And were those 10 hard years? Was it brutal some of the years? Like, let's just be real with some of the founders here. You guys bootstrapped this, which is not easy, and, built a really big platform, which is not easy, and competing with big guys, which is not easy. Seth, was this, just a steady grind for 10 years or, you know?
It definitely had its tough times. Yeah, I
asked
at the
him if
very
he ever cried.
yes, grown men have cried before, and I am one of them. It was a tough time, and it was just the stress had gotten to a point, and there's a specific story Clint's talking about, which we won't go into, but it was just really stressful with where we were at, and Clint called and said, "Hey, I got some good news and some bad news." I said, "Well, hit me with the good news." And he goes, "The good news is we have 17 new clients. And the bad news is they all have to be up tomorrow." And I was already like just buried. I was the guy doing everything at the time. And yeah, it was tough. And then he called the next day and said, "I got good news and bad news. We have 12 more clients and they all have to be up tomorrow." So here I was trying to get all these clients up and going in 2 days, and we already had a lot going on at the time. But yeah, it was tough. There was weeks where you would actually have Clint talked about spouses being so important. My wife would come in and my head was on my desk asleep because I had just fallen asleep maybe a half hour ago and being up all night. and she'd come in and just put a blanket on me or put her arm around me, say, "Hey, it's time to wake up. We got things to do."
Milk the
And
cows.
yeah, and that would happen day after day constantly, at the beginning where we were working throughout the night. We tried to do the overseas. We had heard overseas worked great, and so we hired a team in India, and for a whole, 2 months, I sat there and worked with the team in India and switched my whole schedule to try to make that work since that's the area I was over, and we would just be up all night with them, and then you'd get a quick nap, and then you'd be with the time here in America, and overseas for us didn't work.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of, and I know I'm just talking about sleeping time, but there is a lot of stress that was there as you're trying to make everything work and knowing that you had to provide for the family at the same time and be there for your kids. So it was tough, but now ask me, is it worth it? It was. It was
Okay.
worth it to
I don't
see
get to
what
ask
we've
your
grown.
spouses, was it worth it? But yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So great. Well, thanks for sharing, some of the tougher spots there. They're always there. They're never not there. And I know you guys did the hard work and milked the cows you know, to earn the right to be where you guys are today. Thanks for sharing that. Let's just finish up. You've got a growing company. It's profitable. Um, it's getting better, right? It's got a systemized business. It could triple and not have to triple expenses, right? There's a huge total available market, right? Somebody could come in and offer you a ridiculous amount of money to says we could sell this platform to tens of thousands of customers that we have, and it'll be great. Um, how do you guys think about selling the company someday? And you don't have to, so I'm not advocating that, but like, do you guys have a number in mind or a year in mind or, when you get tired in mind or something like that and you don't have any fun? Or Seth, how do you guys think about that? I know you guys tell your employees what you're thinking and haven't sold it so far. So Seth, how do you think about that?
Uh, Clint and I have always thought that we would build it to a point and sell it. And I think we still have that philosophy, but it has to be to the right person, the right company. Somebody, and it goes back to the employees. We want to make sure that the employees are taken care of, that our philosophy gets to continue with them because they've been built there and helped us get to the point where we're at. And that somebody's not just going to take our tech and kind of, yeah, that's not what we're looking to have done. It's taken a lot of people and time to get to this point, and we'd love to see it keep going.
Yeah. And we profit share with our employees, and so they'll always see an upside if we do sell. But we also want everyone to be able to keep their jobs and excel further with the baby. That's kind of how we think about it is, where's the baby going to go? Is the baby going to grow and not deep sixed and everybody with it? Can they grow in a new position, new opportunities? That's how we kind of think about it.
I've always called that. I mean, that's actually one of the biggest joys of creating a growing company is you have an employee growth factory, right? People can start at the front lines and end up as the VP of something and build a career, and you can help them grow. It's really exciting. Um, and I'm sure that's part of what you have done here. And it sounds like just selling it to the right owner who's going to keep the DNA of the business, the soul of the business, and treat your employees and customers right, probably rules out, I don't know, 90% of potential buyers, financial buyers, private equity buyers who, want to pump it and flip it and make the most of it. There's buy and hold investors out there that, you know, want to leverage the charm of these kind of business, but there's not as many of those. Could you rule out private equity as a class, saying they'll never be, capture the soul and continue the business as we've envisioned it? Or
No, I think that there's still an option. There are some out there who we've talked with and would like us to continue running it as is, and the numbers just weren't correct when it came down to the final number. That's why I didn't move forward with those.
okay, do your employees have stock options, Clint, or do they kind of come into the door saying, this is a profit sharing, humble, steady growth game, not a crazy, grow and sell game?
It's a profit sharing bonus system we have in place. Not really a stock option, but the cool thing about it is they actually get, for a lack of a better word, distributions. But they get every quarter they get an extra decent amount added to their normal paycheck. So they get to see the fruits of their labor of the company on a quarterly basis, which is really, really cool.
And they don't come running to you saying, can I have 20 more people to do this? Because they know the game is the difference between what, your net revenue after media spend that passes through to the company and so forth. So
Yeah, and it keeps everybody running. I don't really like the word lean, but I think that's a good word. Keep it, because a manager can be like, yeah, I need 5 more people in my department by tomorrow because we're lazy. It's like, well, that'll affect your bottom line too. And so they don't even begin to think that way.
imagine if Silicon Valley had that. We wouldn't have had, 100,000 people working for Facebook, that they have to go the other direction on.
Twitter was a great one too. I mean,
Yeah, so you're where Twitter, ended up, but you got there and people are still smiling. I don't know how many people are still smiling, the 15% of people left at Twitter. I know there's a lot of grumpiness about Twitter in San Francisco from, the community there. Um, so as we finish here, you guys run into entrepreneurs. You're not running around the ecosystem and pontificating about how to run a company online here, but I'll ask each of you here, Seth, what advice do you have for practical software founders? And they may be in the ad game or have a SaaS product of some sort or, some other thing that what is your most common advice for those that are up and running, above 1 million in revenue and headed some way? What do you tell them most often that is most useful?
I would say not to be afraid to fail. And I'm not talking about the big picture. I'm talking about a lot of times people don't take the chance of seeing, hey, what if we do it this way? What happens? All those little things that could become something big, they never go after because they're comfortable with where they're at. And then I would also say, have the drive to see it through. And Clint and I, when we started and we still have it, we have a saying that's called fail fast. And so that's what I would say is try stuff out. And if you see that it's failing, shelf it and go to the next thing and move on until you find that one that's doing better than where you're at right now. And then put the determination and the motivation behind it to see it through to make it something.
It's like your ad test algorithm, but in real life, right? Let you spray and pray and see what works and do more of that and right? And most of it's not gonna work and hurry up. Something like that.
And then in building this, Clint and I went through lots of things that just didn't work out. We would try different things or try different models to make it work and try how the algorithm is going to work. And if it wasn't working, we were okay. We were okay that it didn't work. We wouldn't say, "Oh, it's all over, crush, close the doors." It wasn't like that. It was like, "Okay, we know that doesn't work. What's our next thing we're trying?" And we always had different ideas in the background so that if something didn't, we would pop this next one in and see where it took us.
Awesome. Not everybody thinks like that, ironically, out there. I mean, it is a little bit of that scientific method and, it's a love of failure, but like it's a humility that you don't know what's going to work before you try something, you know, all the time. So, Clint, what advice do you have for those founders that are onto something and thinking about making it bigger?
oh man, make sure you have the right spouse. Um, I would say our wives have been to hell and back, and they stuck with us. They never once. Um, there's a lot of funny stories around that, but our wives.
Funny now, I guess.
Funny
Right.
now, yeah. Seth and I were always talking about the next big thing at the barbecue we were having, and our wives would look at each other and roll their eyes like, whatever. We've heard this story before. And so when the story finally unfolded, we got to really throw that back in their face. That was kind of fun. But it, with having a partner, whether you have a partner in the business or not. For us, it's been, I get to share 50% of that stress and responsibility with Seth. And now at home, being able to share 50% of what I have with a spouse and get live feedback from someone who's smarter than I am at home has been a game changer. And that we see it all the time. That's tough to do. One, either on your own or not a good spouse. And you got to be able to. Seth and I were talking the other day because someone asked me a similar question. And I said, well, are you finding yourself up at 3 o'clock in the morning with your laptop in bed and your spouse sleeping next to you? Well, no. I said, well, then you might as well shut the doors because you ain't going to make it. You have to be able to have both of those, the dedication to work harder than anybody else and the support next to you. So that's one big one for me. And the people all around it. This is something founders fail at all the time is they want to do everything. And Seth and I were guilty of that for a long time. And when Jeremy Hudgens came along, with and a few others, we were like, hey, we can, these guys want this as bad as we do. And they can do this bigger and better than we ever can if we build up that way. And so relenting those duties is really hard. And man, if you do that early and well and pay well and create a good environment, that's a game changer. Absolute game changer.
Awesome. Great advice for going long. And, it's been, 2013 to 2015 here, 12 years, and this thing will keep on going. So Genius Monkey is going to be around for a long time. You both should be really proud of that, right? I can't imagine the numbers of how many ads you've served and how many clicks out there. It's trillions or whatever the number is, something like that. But you've created an institution that will live on for a long time. And that's, should be very, very proud of that in the tech industry.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we are very proud of it. Very proud.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being on the Practical Founders podcast and sharing your story. Thanks, Seth, and thanks, Clint, for being here today.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks for doing this, by the way. This podcast is pretty awesome on what you're putting out there to the world. And
well, the funny thing is, I didn't have to be the 3 o'clock in the morning in your business. I had my own business before, but I get to just share the stories. That's the fun part for me here. So awesome. Good stuff.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks for watching this week's founder interview on the Practical Founders podcast. Be sure to hit like and then subscribe to my Practical Founders YouTube channel to keep up with my weekly videos for serious software founders who are building valuable companies without big funding. Check out my blog and information about my Practical Founders CEO peer groups at practicalfounders.com. And follow me on LinkedIn to keep the conversation going. See you next week.